The Galactic Council chamber was the most powerful room in the galaxy. It was shaped like a vast circle, with each alien empire's seat rising in tall platforms around the center. The walls glowed with golden light, and the air carried the smell of rare flowers from 1,000 worlds. Every race in the galaxy had a representative here. They were waiting for one thing: the arrival of the humans. Most of them had never seen a human in person. They had read the reports. They had watched the recordings. Humans were a young species, barely a century in space travel. In the Council's mind, they were nothing special. Just another race that would soon join the Alliance, obey the rules, and pay their share of tribute. That was how it always happened. The Council leader, a tall, silver-skinned alien named Zarathus, smiled as he stood. "They will arrive soon," he said to the other members. "We must be patient. They will understand the value of our alliance." A deep horn echoed through the chamber. The great doors at the far end began to open. All conversations stopped. The air suddenly felt heavier, and even the light in the room seemed to dim. The humans had arrived. 5 figures walked in, their steps slow and deliberate. They wore long black uniforms that reflected no light. Their faces were calm, too calm. At the front was the human ambassador, a man with sharp eyes that scanned the room like a hunter studying prey. Behind him walked 2 men and 2 women, each carrying a sealed black case. The Council's scanners tried to read what was inside, but the results came back empty. Not blocked, empty, as if the cases didn't exist at all. The alien leaders expected humans to smile or bow. Instead, they simply walked to the center and stopped. No words, no gestures, just silence. Ambassador Kyle's voice finally broke the stillness. "We received your invitation," he said in a low, steady tone. "We are here to hear your offer." Zarathus smiled again, hiding his irritation. "Humanity has grown quickly," he began. "You have shown skill, ambition, and courage. The Council believes you are ready to join our great alliance. We offer you trade across the galaxy, access to our technology, and protection from our fleets. In return, you will share your resources and agree to our laws. Together, we will ensure peace." The chamber filled with polite applause from some members, but the humans didn't clap. They didn't smile. They didn't even blink. Ambassador Kale tilted his head slightly. "And if we refuse?" A ripple of confusion moved through the Council seats. No one had ever refused the alliance, some alien. Leaders leaned forward, thinking they must have heard wrong. Zarathus chuckled. "Refuse? There is no reason to refuse. This is the greatest opportunity your people will ever have. Without our protection, you would be vulnerable to the dangers of the galaxy." Kyle took a slow step forward. The sound of his boots echoed across the chamber. "We are not here to be protected," he said. "We protect ourselves." The silence that followed was thick, almost painful. In that moment, several Council members felt something they had not felt in years: uncertainty. They studied the humans again, and for the first time, they noticed something strange. None of the humans looked nervous. In fact, their eyes moved calmly over the alien leaders, like a teacher watching noisy children. Zarathus cleared his throat. "Perhaps you misunderstand. The alliance is not optional." Kale's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. "Everything is optional." Without another word, he turned to his aides. They closed the cases they had been holding, not that anyone had seen them open, and the group began walking toward the doors. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. No one had ever dared to simply walk away from the Council. "Ambassador!" Zarathus called, his voice sharper now. "If you walk out that door, you risk your planet's future." Kyle paused only long enough to glance over his shoulder. "Our future is not yours to decide. The heavy doors closed behind them, sealing the chamber in a tense silence. The council members stared at each other, their minds racing. Why would humanity reject the most powerful alliance in the galaxy? What did they have that gave them such confidence? In the upper levels of the chamber, two alien spies exchanged quick glances. They had been watching the humans closely, and they didn't like what they saw. The humans' calmness was unnatural, almost dangerous. One spy whispered to the other, "They know something we don't." Zarethus sat back in his seat, his hands trembling slightly. He had led the council for 50 years. In that time, he had seen rebellions crushed, wars ended, and worlds brought to their knees. But this was different. For the first time, he felt a small shadow of fear. The humans had refused, and they had done it without anger, without threats, only with quiet certainty. No one in the council chamber knew it yet, but that quiet would soon set the galaxy on fire. The council chamber stayed quiet long after the humans had gone. No one wanted to be the first to speak. The echo of their footsteps still seemed to hang in the air, like a warning no one could understand. Zarethus finally broke the silence. "We will call them back," he said, though his voice was less confident than before. "Perhaps they are simply uneducated about our ways. They need to understand the benefits." But even as he spoke, a deep unease moved through the room. The humans had not looked like people who needed convincing. They had looked like people who already knew exactly what they were doing. Later that day, the council sent an urgent message to the human delegation. It was polite, even friendly, but the words carried a sharp edge. It invited them to a private meeting in the council's inner chamber, away from the noise of politics. There, the most powerful leaders would speak to them directly. The humans agreed to return, but when they entered the private chamber, their faces showed the same unreadable calm as before. This time, the council offered more. Access to ancient, alien archives containing knowledge from 1,000 civilizations, advanced weapons that could make humanity untouchable in war, entire sectors of space where humans would rule freely. It was everything most young species dreamed of, any other. Race would have bowed in gratitude, but Ambassador Kale only listened, his hands resting loosely on the black table between them. "We hear your offer," he said, "and we still refuse." One of the council generals slammed a clawed hand against the table. "Do you know what you are throwing away? Without our alliance, you will have enemies on every border." Kyle turned, his gaze to the general, his voice calm but cold. "Enemies are only a problem if you fear them." The words hung in the air like a blade. The council leaders exchanged uneasy glances. This was not arrogance. This was something else. Confidence born from knowledge the council did not have. Zarethus tried one last time. "We are offering you peace, Ambassador." Kyle's reply was short. "We already have it." He stood, signaling to his aides. Once again, the humans left without shaking hands, without making promises, without even raising their voices. They simply walked away. When the doors closed behind them, one of the council's oldest members leaned toward Zarethus. "I have seen that look before," he said quietly. "That is the look of a species that has no need for allies, because it already has something greater." Zarethus frowned. "And what is that?" The old member's eyes darkened. "Power." Far from the council chambers, the human delegation boarded their sleek transport ship. As the engines hummed to life, one of Kale's aides asked, "They will not stop here, will they?" Kale's eyes stayed fixed on the stars outside the viewport. "No," he said, "and that's the problem. They will keep pushing, and one day they will find out why we do not need them." The next morning, the council's grand hall was buzzing with voices. Representatives from dozens of worlds gathered in small groups, speaking in low, hurried tones. The rejection from humanity had spread like a storm through the galaxy's political networks. Some called it arrogance, others said it was foolishness, but a few spoke in hushed voices, as if afraid someone might hear them. They said humanity was hiding something. On the upper balcony, two alien diplomats from rival empires whispered together. "They have no fleets big enough to challenge us," one said. "That we know of," the other replied, his long eyes narrowing. "What if they have something else?" Rumors began to grow. A merchant captain claimed to have seen a dark, massive shape in deep space near the human border. It had no running lights, no identification codes, and it vanished from his scanners without warning. Another trader swore he heard a transmission on an old military frequency, human voices speaking in short, sharp codes he could not translate. By midday, the whispers reached the Council's intelligence branch. They dispatched 3 covert ships to quietly enter human space and gather information. The orders were simple: scan for military activity, locate hidden shipyards, and report back. The first ship disappeared within 6 hours. No distress call, no damage signals, just silence. The second ship sent a single transmission before vanishing. "Something is..." and then nothing. The third ship managed to stay in contact for almost 2 days. It reported strange readings, energy spikes far beyond known technology, movement patterns that didn't match any council design, and at one point the shadow of something so large it blocked out the stars. Then the transmission ended. Back in Midelha, the Council's inner chambers, fear began to replace curiosity. If humanity truly was a weak, young species, why had they walked away so calmly? And what had happened to the Council's spies? That night, an old intelligence file was quietly brought out of the archives. It was marked Top Secret, Eyes Only. The file described an event from over 2 centuries ago, a sighting by a deep space exploration vessel. The crew had claimed to see a single warship, black as the void, drifting silently through the edges of the galaxy. The ship's size was impossible, larger than any space station in existence. The Council had dismissed the report as fantasy, but the name in the file made one member's skin go cold. Origin: Sol System. The Council's inner archives were a place few dared to enter. The chamber was dark, lit only by the soft blue glow of data crystals stacked in tall glass towers. Here, history was kept, truths the galaxy had chosen to forget. Council archivist Theron's hands trembled as he slid the crystal into the reader. The old file came alive in front of him, projecting a faded hollow recording into the air. Static hissed, and then a shaky image appeared. It showed the bridge of an ancient exploration ship. The crew looked terrified. A deep, rumbling voice came from the recording. "We have visual contact. Object is massive. No, it's beyond. Massive. It's blocking the star field." The camera turned, and for a moment the image shook too badly to see. Then it focused, and the Council members watching froze. A black shape moved slowly across the stars. Its surface reflected no light. Its outline was jagged, sharp, and wrong, like something built for war, not beauty. Even though the recording was over 200 years old, the sight of it sent a chill through the room. One of the younger Council members whispered, "That can't be a ship. It's too big." The rune's voice was quiet, but steady. "The file says it came from the Sol System, Earth's home," murmurs spread across the chamber. This was before humanity had officially entered space, before they had even been discovered by the Council. If this report was true, then humans had been building starships long before the galaxy believed they could. The file's final entry was short. Vessel approached within 1,000 kilometers. All systems failed. Last recorded words: They see us. Then the recording cut to black. Zarathus sat in silence for a long time. He had once thought of humans as nothing more than clever children, bold but harmless. Now, a thought began to grow in his mind, a thought he didn't like. "What if," he said slowly, "we have never truly understood them? What if they are not a young species at all?" No one answered. In the shadows of the chamber, one intelligence officer turned and left without a word. His mission was clear. He would go to human space himself, without the Council's approval, and see the truth with his own eyes. He would never be seen again. For the next several weeks, the Galactic Council tried every method to contact humanity. They sent official messages, private envoys, trade offers, even personal letters from respected leaders. None received a reply. It was as if Earth had closed its doors to the galaxy. The few ships that approached human space reported strict warnings from automated defense satellites. "Turn back. You are entering restricted space." Those who ignored the warning simply vanished from the records. On the edges of human territory, traders spoke of strange sightings, massive shadows drifting in the darkness, lights that moved in unnatural patterns, entire starfields disappearing behind something that could not be seen on scanners. In one sector, a merchant convoy claimed to see a structure hanging in space. It was bigger than a moon, covered in layers of black metal. The moment their sensors tried to scan it, the image vanished, as if it had never been there at all. The Council grew restless. Some members argued that humanity was building a secret war fleet. Others believed they had discovered ancient technology from a lost civilization. No one could agree on the truth, but one thing was certain. Human space was no longer open to outsiders. Zarathus called an emergency meeting. "If they continue like this," he warned, "we may lose control of the situation. A species that hides its strength is far more dangerous than one that shows it." A general from the Krith Empire slammed his armored fist on the table. "Enough waiting. We send a fleet into their territory. If they resist, we crush them. If they are bluffing, we will know." The vote was tense. Not every council member wanted to risk war, but fear has a way of silencing doubt. By the end of the meeting, the decision was made. A fleet would enter human space, not for negotiation, but for control. Far away in the Sol system, human listening stations picked up the Council's encrypted orders. The message was sent to a hidden command center deep beneath the surface of Mars. Inside, a human officer handed the data to a tall figure in a dark uniform. "They're coming," the officer said. The figure studied the message for a long moment before replying in a calm, almost amused voice. "Good. Let them." News of the Council's decision spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, leaders of other empires stopped their usual rivalries to watch the drama unfold. Some were curious, some were afraid, and a few were secretly excited to see humanity punished for their defiance. In the royal halls of the Varn Dominion, the High Queen laughed when she heard the news. "Humans, they are nothing. The Council will break them in a single strike." Her advisors nodded, though a few kept their doubts hidden. On the distant trade worlds of the Zur Alliance, merchants whispered about the risks. "If the Council wins," they said, "trade with Earth will be theirs alone. But if the humans win—" They left the sentence unfinished, as if speaking it aloud might invite trouble. Meanwhile, deep in unaligned space, pirate fleets began to move toward the edges of human territory, hoping to pick apart whatever was left after the Council's attack. They didn't realize that they, too, were being watched. Inside the Sol system, Earth's skies were calm. Cities went about their daily lives. Civilian broadcasts spoke of nothing unusual. But in the hidden layers of human space, war preparations were already complete. Beneath the oceans of Europa, in the hollowed-out mountains of Mars, and in massive stations hidden inside asteroid belts, fleets stood ready. Their ships were unlike anything the rest of the galaxy had seen, sleek, black, and silent. Back in the Council's war chambers, admirals gathered around a holographic map of human space. A glowing blue arrow marked the fleet's planned path, straight to Earth. One young strategist hesitated before speaking. "We are assuming they will fight with what we've seen before," she said carefully. "But what if there's more?" Her words were ignored. Confidence was the Council's oldest weakness. As the massive fleet began its slow approach toward the human border, dozens of worlds tuned in to the live updates. Civilizations held their breath, waiting for the first strike. They didn't know that humanity was already watching them all. In a hidden command station, Ambassador Kale stood before a wall of holographic screens, each showing a different alien, fleet preparing to move. His expression was calm, almost bored. A junior officer asked, "Shall we intercept them before they cross the line?" Kyle shook his head. "No, let them enter. The galaxy is watching, and we want them to see everything." The Council fleet crossed into human space without resistance. Hundreds of warships, their hulls gleaming under distant starlight, moved in perfect formation. Battleships, carriers, destroyers, enough firepower to crush a dozen planets. The admirals were confident. From the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Korvek sent a message to Earth. "This is the Galactic Council Defense Fleet. You will stand down your forces and accept our terms, or we will engage." There was no reply. Korvek frowned and ordered the fleet to advance toward Mars. The plan was simple: take control of Mars's orbital stations, then move on to Earth. But as they passed the outer defense perimeter, the fleet's long-range scanners began to act strangely. Signals flickered in and out. Energy readings spiked, then vanished. "What is causing this interference?" Korvek demanded. "No source identified," replied his sensor officer. "It's everywhere, sir." Suddenly a voice came over the fleet's encrypted channel. It was calm, human, and cold. "You have crossed into restricted space. You have one chance to turn back. This is your only warning." Korvek's bridge crew looked uneasy. The transmission wasn't coming from any single ship. It seemed to come from all directions at once. The Admiral ignored it. "Continue the advance," he ordered. Moments later, the first ship in the formation vanished from sensors. No explosion, no debris, just gone. "Where is the Vanguard?" Korvek barked. "Unknown, sir. It's like it was never there." Then, another ship disappeared. And another. Panic began to spread through the fleet as entire squadrons went dark without a sound. The void around them seemed to shift, as if something enormous was moving unseen. Korvek finally saw it, just for a moment. A shape in the darkness, larger than any warship he had ever imagined. It glided silently between the stars, its black hull swallowing all light. Before he could speak, it was gone again, like a shadow slipping into deeper shadow. "Admiral," his second officer whispered, I think we are not the hunters here." One last transmission reached the Council before the fleet was lost. It was Korvek's voice, breaking with fear. "It's not possible." Then silence. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, the news hit like a meteor. The fleet had vanished without a single confirmed battle. No wreckage, no survivors, just absence. And in the Sol system, far from alien eyes, something stirred in the darkness, waiting for the next move. For 3 days, the galaxy waited for news from the Council fleet. At first, rumors claimed the humans had surrendered. Then whispers suggested the fleet had won without a fight. But when the official report came, it contained only one detail. The fleet was gone. No wreckage, no distress calls, no survivors. The shock spread through every world. Markets froze, fleets stood down, and political leaders locked themselves in private meetings. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council had no answer. Then, without warning, every communication channel in the galaxy was taken over. Civilian networks, military frequencies, even encrypted government lines all showed the same image. It was Ambassador Kale. He stood in a dark room, the light from a single lamp casting sharp shadows across his face. His expression was calm, almost cold. "People of the galaxy," he began, his voice steady, carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "Your fleets entered our space without permission. They are no longer a concern. Let this be clear. Humanity seeks no war, but we will never kneel." The image shifted. Behind Kale, something moved. A massive shadow filled the background. Its shape barely visible, but undeniably enormous. Glowing red lines traced along its surface, hinting at a scale no one could measure. Kale continued, "You think us young. You think us small. You are wrong. We walk our own path. We guard our own skies. Cross our borders again. And you will not return." The transmission cut off. Every channel returned to normal as if nothing had happened. But the message was burned into the minds of all who saw it. In the council chamber, Zarathus sat frozen. "What was that in the background?" one member asked. No one could answer. Across the galaxy, citizens spoke in fear. Some said it was a ship the size of a planet. Others believed it was not a ship at all, but something far older, something that had been sleeping in the darkness until now. And on a classified channel deep within the Sol system, Kyle stood before a viewing window, watching the shadow move silently through space. It was real. It was awake. And the galaxy had only seen a fraction of what it could do. The Galactic Council chamber had never been this loud. Voices shouted over each other. Papers and data pads were thrown onto the great table. Security guards lined the walls, their eyes darting nervously toward the exits. "They erased an entire fleet," one delegate shouted, "without even leaving debris." "This was no battle," another argued. "It was a warning. They could have destroyed more if they wanted to." Chancellor Vorath tried to bring order, slamming his gavel against the table. "Silence!" he roared. But the chaos only dimmed slightly. His eyes flicked to the reports on his desk, raw data from ships that had monitored the event from a distance. All sensors told the same unbelievable truth. The human strike had lasted less than 7 minutes. 7 minutes. And a fleet of 60 ships was gone. Zarathus stood and spoke, his voice cutting through the noise. "If humanity wanted us dead, we would already be gone. They showed restraint. That shadow behind Ambassador Kale, whatever it was, that was the real threat." The room fell quiet. Many delegates glanced around nervously, as if speaking of the shadow might summon it. In the far corner, an old advisor named Lethra leaned forward. "We must act quickly. If we hesitate, entire star systems will turn to humanity for protection, instead of us. Already, 3 border worlds have cut contact with the Council." The words hit the room like a weapon. Losing border worlds meant losing resources, fleets, and power. The Council's authority was already crumbling. "Mobilize. Every ship we have," one general demanded. "No," Zarathus countered sharply. "More fleets will only provoke them. We need negotiation now before they decide the Council is useless." But Chancellor Vorath could feel it. This was more than a political crisis. It was the slow death of the Council itself. Fear was spreading faster than their orders. The citizens no longer trusted their leaders to keep them safe. And somewhere, deep in the uncharted void, the shadow that had haunted their screens was still moving, still watching, still waiting. Far from the Galactic Council's chambers, in a silent region of space, a massive human command station floated in the darkness, Its black hull absorbed all light, making it almost invisible to scanners. Inside, the atmosphere was calm, not frantic like the Council. Admiral Hayes stood before a large tactical display. Around him, officers worked quietly, their hands moving. Over controls with precision. On the screen, countless star systems glowed, some marked in red, others in gold. Each gold star represented a planet the Council once controlled. Status? Hayes asked. Phase 2 is complete, replied Commander Liu. Local leaders on 12 worlds have agreed to switch allegiance. No battles, just promises. Hayes nodded slowly. Good. Promises are stronger than fear. For now. Back. In the Council's territory, their fleets were scrambling, unsure whether to prepare for war or peace. What they didn't know was that humanity had no intention of conquering by force. Not yet. Instead, they were building alliances with planets that had suffered under the Council's rule. Each alliance brought food, resources, and information into human hands without firing a shot. In the Council chamber, Chancellor Vorath still believed the humans might return to the negotiating table. But in truth, Earth had already decided. The Council was finished. It would collapse from within without a single large-scale war. At that moment, Admiral Hayes turned to his officers. We've shown them a glimpse of our power. Now we wait. Fear will do the rest. But deep in his mind, Hayes knew the real plan went even further. The shadow the Council had seen in the previous battle wasn't just a weapon, it was a fleet, an entire second human armada, hidden beyond the galactic rim. If the Council somehow survived the political collapse, then humanity would unleash it, and when that day came, no one would walk away alive. In the farthest reaches of the galaxy, where no star shone bright enough to guide a ship, something enormous began to move. The darkness there had been silent for months, hiding a force so vast that even humanity's allies did not know its true size. The Leviathan-class warships, each the length of a small moon, drifted slowly at first. Their black armor blended with the void, but when their engines came alive, blue fire streaked across the emptiness. One by one, thousands of ships joined the formation. On the bridge of the lead ship, Horizon's Wrath, Captain Marlowe watched. The fleet take shape. Signal from Earth Command, the comm officer said. The waiting is over. Marlowe smiled faintly. Then let the galaxy see what they feared in their nightmares. Back in the Galactic Council's central worlds, strange reports began to appear. Outposts on the rim spoke of shadows blotting out the stars. Patrol fleets sent to investigate never returned. The few survivors who escaped spoke of ships so large they made entire battle cruisers look like shuttles. In the Council chamber, Chancellor Vorath's voice trembled for the first time. Are they coming for us? No one answered. The truth was clear in their eyes. The humans had refused the alliance, built their strength in secret. And now, the real armada was moving straight toward the Council's heart worlds. Still, no formal declaration of war came. The silence was worse than any threat. Every hour the shadows grew closer, and every hour the Council's fleets pulled back, afraid, to meet them. In the void, Captain Marlowe gave the order, full burn. We'll arrive ahead of schedule. The stars seemed to vanish behind the advancing wall of steel, and somewhere deep in the Council's capital, fear turned into desperation. The Council's capital world awoke to silence. There was no sunrise, only a strange darkness spreading across the sky. People rushed out of their homes looking up in confusion. The clouds were not moving. The darkness was not weather, it was ships. From horizon to horizon, the sky was filled with massive human warships. Their black hulls drank the light, their shapes sharp and alien compared to anything the Council had seen before. Smaller escort, Ships swarmed between them like hunting predators. In the council chamber, alarms screamed. Holographic maps showed the blockade tightening around the planet. There was no escape. Every spaceport, every orbital station, every defense platform was locked in human targeting grids. A deep voice came through every channel. It was Captain Marlowe, calm and cold. "Galactic Council, you once asked for our alliance. We refused. You mocked our strength. You thought we were alone. Now you will understand. We were only silent because we were preparing." On the surface, soldiers watched in awe as the warships opened their bays, but no bombardment came. Instead, thousands of smaller craft descended, sleek black shuttles carrying armored troops. In the chamber, Chancellor Vorath's hands shook. We surrender." Marlowe's voice replied instantly. "This is not about surrender. This is about balance. Humanity will decide what happens next." Above, the largest of the ships, the Horizon's Wrath, moved into position, blocking the planet's sun completely. For the first time in history, the Council world was in total darkness at midday. Every being on the planet knew the truth in that moment. Humanity had become the new power in the galaxy, and the galaxy would never be the same again.